Arganissima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more. Bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today. Arganissima, New York. Your beauty is our duty.
Folks, welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, with your host, Hurricane H. New day, new show, the topic of the hour, with one of my returning guests and one of the trailblazers out there in mental health, actually. She is the founder of the Global Institute of Children's Mental Health, and she has been named thought leader by Forbes magazine. So that I needed to put that in there because that's big stuff. And, I am talking about Dr. Roseann Capanna Hodge, which was with us about a year ago. And we talked about her book then, for parents, it's going to be okay. And, it's just about, the children and the mental health and all the good stuff. But today we are coming back because it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And we're going to talk a little bit about all that. Her new stuff, as well as we're going to veer a little bit and talk about, the mental health in the workplace as well, because that's another area that's big these days. So, Doctor, welcome to the show again.
Well, thank you. We had a little fun pre-conversation. So I always enjoy talking to you, and we're both people who are on a mission to help other people in different ways and to help people educate themselves so that they can take a different action. And for me, it's all about mental wellness and changing the trajectory of mental health, not just for an individual, but for a parent in their what comes after, right? The generational mental wealth is something that I love to talk about. And when people make an investment in their brain and changing their behavior so that they're, feeling better and making healthier responses, there's such a huge impact.
It is. It's funny you mentioned that we had the little, chat. It wasn't a little, but it is an important, piece, because we're talking about just, what we do in our mission and all the stuff. But it is part of our mental status too, because the way I see it, that's the driver behind me. That's why I keep going through, and it pushes me. Same thing with you, and it keeps you in a good state of mind, I would say, and you're happy. You don't dwell too much and stuff. So I guess you're healthier mentally that way. We have our challenges, of course, but yeah, it is what it is, right? But we'd like people to get that. We want to be contagious today. We want to give you that energy and get you that vibe.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what you're really talking about is, the mindset of, is it a glass half empty or a glass half full? Mm-hmm. And we know through research that when you have a glass half full mindset, you are happier, you have less clinical issues, and you actually live longer. And, yes, you can be born a glass half full or a glass half empty, whatever it is, but you can work towards a positive growth mindset. These are things that are attainable strategies that anybody can do if they just practice them.
Well, it's a choice, right? I mean,
it's a choice.
You asked me the question earlier about, was there anybody in my life that helped? And yes, I mean, there's always environment that touches on you, but it's not necessarily always true. Some people may not have that, but they can change. That's the thing. We can make that difference. People, I just had a talk, literally it's just going to broadcast, and we talked about the victim mentality, my God, my world is it's bad because of everything. I can't do anything because of my circumstances, because of this. If we want to find every excuse in the book, to determine why things are not happening, we will find them. If we want to have every reason why everything's going to work out, we can find them. That's the mindset effect, as you said. It's just that, and we have a control. That's I'm not a doctor in terms of the field, but I can tell you, just as a person, I know these things by just default, by doing, right? You're a doctor who actually handles this, works with this, and talks about it almost. This is your work, your life.
Yeah.
And you know how this stuff works. It's complex maybe, but not so.
It is
It's weird.
complex. It is complex, but we are the master of our minds. And it doesn't negate that we have traumas, right? There's little traumas. We call those little T's, big traumas. And everyone has a trauma impact. We're living through, a pandemic. It's been pretty traumatic for everybody. I mean, the rise in mental health issues is just skyrocketing. Children, adults, psychiatric medication, everything. And when people start to realize they can tend to their own inner garden and the power of that, right? It's work. It's a different kind of work. It's micro lessons. And I think sometimes people look at us, I'm a positive person, right? When things happen, I'm like, okay, let me experience it. Let me feel it. I'm not going to ignore negative things. And then I go into a thinking, problem solving mode because that's just my brain. And that's just the way I was raised. Right. And, and that doesn't mean, again, big, horrible things don't happen, but our attitude to a problem is under our control. Right. That is the only thing we can control. We can't control if, we get in a car wreck or, my mother, passed away a few months ago. I can't control that. But what I can control is my thoughts and my feelings and my sensations. We should never ignore them, right? We can't push them aside, but we can't let them control us, right? We have to find healthy coping mechanisms, and it's through little work. And it's also through a lot of gratitude and looking at things in a different way. I think that is really, really helpful. And, I think all of us can think of every single person in our lives who's really this negative person where almost nothing comes out of their mouth without a negative spin. And then on contrast, we can think of somebody who really is sort of walking sunshine, like just has a positive attitude, has a attitude of gratitude. I was thinking about, I'm friends with a woman named Suzanne, and she's actually a big reporter in one of the major news network areas, right? And she's making a docu-film. And so, she asked for my help and I help her, and I'm just a helper, right? And we just became buddies. And she has such a gratitude language. Every time I talk to her, every word starts with, I appreciate, I this. And it's just so amazing to be around other human beings like that. And, you and I were talking about not just the attitude, but who you surround yourself with makes it a lot easier to have a growth mindset. And in these hard times, these are the things that we can actually do that can make a difference. And neither one of them cost any money. And there's no excuse not to do them.
I'm listening to you, and it's contagious, right? I can feel that vibe. But you're right. Like, you have people who have nothing to say but negative stuff. And it's not, sometimes like when you try to wonder like why, you can't find a reason. That's how they see things. And you're right. There's a whole bunch. I mean, as a joke, this is true story. When I go into interviews in corporate and, they tell me like, tell me something that is not good about you. Like, there's a question always about like, what, you said all this good stuff. What's the one thing about you that you might have to change, or like it's not really vibing? It's like, I have a problem. And it's like, I'm too positive. I cannot see negative. You can tell me anything. I can tell you like, why it's positive and not negative. And sometimes that might be bad because you do want to contrast and be able to balance, but that's my thing. So they start laughing. I'm like, I really don't think, I cannot think negative. I just can't. And people they keep looking at me and like, okay, well, that's it. I mean, I can think of something else, but this is the one that I feel that's maybe a weakness of mine. But in a way, it is a strength, But yes, I mean, in circumstances where I may not understand that it could go wrong, but that's not necessarily true because I do realize there is a point of anything where you have to make a decision. This is working, not working, But the positive outlook here means to me is that I just go through it for whatever it's worth and test it out. If it's not working, then I give it a shot and then I move on. I don't say it's not going to work before testing. I don't. I think that's the main difference, is that whether you, just eliminate the abilities and the potential from the get-go, or you just test it out, let it go, figure it out as you go, and then you give it a time frame. If it's not going to go anywhere that you want it, then you stop. Now, see, there is something negative about it, but I'll discover the negativity as I go through it, and then I move on. So I was like, well, that's a waste of time. Maybe not. I don't know. Right now, I can tell you it serves me well in my life, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't change it
Well,
for anything.
you're comfortable taking risks, and 70% of all decisions are made out of fear to avoid something uncomfortable. 70% of all decisions. And we make some obscene amount of decisions in a day. I think like 34,000 decisions in a day. So, we're often avoiding something like an uncomfortableness. And, when you're talking about, we're not telling you to all go, like I went to, right before the pandemic, January of 2020, I went to Hawaii with a bunch of my friends in a business entrepreneur, health entrepreneur group. And a bunch of them were like jumping off the cliffs in Hawaii. And they were like, you should do it, Ro. And I was like, kids, I'm a risk taker, but I'm not doing dumb stuff.
That's right. It's
And I
two
was like,
different things.
I'm not doing it. Okay. And they're but but stretching ourselves, right? It's a lot easier when we are feeling regulated. Our nervous system is calm, our brain is calm. And I think what has really happened, and we've been building, right? This is my 31st year in mental health. We've been building over time a level of stress tolerance, right? Like we just keep getting more and more. Everyone accepts stress, right? And we do have to have stress, but nobody's doing things hopefully anymore to mitigate it. And I shouldn't say nobody, but we are moving to a society where they want to medicate. We didn't shut down liquor stores in the pandemic because they knew they couldn't handle all the alcoholics. Where would they put them, right? With our hospitals being full during COVID. And people are disconnecting in order to relieve stress instead of connecting in order to relieve stress and doing other things. We definitely saw some real positive exercise happening in the beginning, but we have now become a society where people are, agitated and irritated and angry, and that's not okay. And when we feel that way, again, we can only be responsible for ourselves. So instead of focusing on what everybody else is doing, looking at yourself and saying, what else can I do to calm my nervous system down? Because you can tolerate stress a lot more when you're taking 10, 15, 20 minutes for a walk, yoga, prayer, breath work, positive gratitude journaling, anything. These are all things that are really accessible for people that they need to do in order to feel grounded and anchored so that they can have good mental health.
Doctor, it's amazing. You mentioned something about first gratitude, right? And having that attitude. I mean, you gave the example of your friend. What does it take not to be grateful? I mean, it's really simple to just say thank you, have a smile, be happy.
Yeah.
Okay, do good things. I still believe that, it will take less energy to do positive and be grateful. I mean, the power of thank you, it's not a big deal to say thank you. Even if you don't mean it, just
Doesn't
say
it
the
feel
damn thing.
it's so nice, today,
I appreciate it.
yeah, I mean, I just appreciate it. I'm so grateful for you. I often say I'm so grateful for you. And, when my clients come to me and, we have so people come to me from all over the world, and we have this program called Brain Behavior Reset. And it's a 6-month program. And it's a lot of young people. It's young adults and kids. Not that I don't have adults, but I love kids because parents are all in for their kids way more than they are for themselves. So I often get a whole family change, which I think is just so impactful. But, when, people come to me, we have this process, and we use things like neurofeedback and biofeedback and diet and lifestyle, and we get their brain changed and new behaviors. But we do about 40 sessions of neurofeedback in this 6 months. And at session 20, I do a check-in, right? Because a lot of brain change happens. And usually people are so thrilled with the changes that they're seeing. And I always take time for every call, no matter where they are in their journey, to actually thank them, and that I'm grateful that they came to me and I'm proud of them. And people are so funny because they just don't hear these words. But it's a lot of work when you say, hey, I've had enough of this anxiety. I've had enough of this depression. And in making a commitment to actually do something different, to change your behavior, is hard. It's possible, though. And I think that's a message we're not getting out to people. We're all saying, just take a pill. It will, it will make you feel better. Well, what are you doing differently in your life? Are you using gratitude language? Are you getting up today? I try to do my prayer candles every morning. I'm not saying everybody should pray. I just know that it works for me. And research says that people who regularly pray have less mental health issues. So, we have to do things for ourselves. And I think the smaller the action and the more consistent it is, the bigger the lift actually, and because it means you're making changes.
Doctor, it's amazing. You're touching on so many areas right now. First, I mean, we're talking about being grateful and stuff, and it's as simple as that, right? You said, people are stressed,
Simple.
and they just don't know how to kind of. I think sometimes it's just the ego. I don't know. Maybe you just don't want to say to someone like, thank you, like, who the hell are you? So I can thank you. I mean, sometimes that's how it feels, right? You can say thank you. It's okay. Even if someone doesn't do anything, you just do it, and it makes a difference. You talked about, prayer. And by the way, it doesn't matter what religion and faith
Nope.
you have, but here's the thing: prayer introduces the idea of faith and believe, and so I think that's one of the biggest differentiators, because if you have some level of that, you're also a realist about life. You understand life a little bit better. You do have it's not blind faith, maybe it is, but it is the idea of I understand. For example, that's one of the things about me. When I say I'm positive, I can tell you what positive thing, even in that, and people are like, dude, don't talk about that. Well, it is the only, I mean, I would say the only what do you call it, the only certain things in life is that.
Right.
I mean, it's like the irony of it, but it's reality, right? The one thing I can promise in this life is that is real. And so when you determine that is the case, are you going to be afraid of that? No, you're going to be prepared for it. Maybe that's all. So that's gone. And the same thing. So what's the worst case scenario? That's the other thing. Are you prepared to have the worst case scenario? I'm always prepared for the worst case scenario. What's the worst that can happen? I'm going to lose everything. I came with nothing. I mean, we start this world with nothing, right? I mean,
Sure.
you probably like 20,000 before even born. I mean, we don't know that until we grew up, that our parents had to spend that much money on us before we got here. But the idea is but you didn't have anything. You just grew up and then find out like, oh,
That's
I got all
right.
the stuff that my parents provided or
Sure.
world provided somehow. Sometimes you have parents, whatever, it doesn't matter. No one comes in this world and things are happening for them regardless, right? It's going to happen one way or the other. Different levels maybe, but it happens. So if you actually are ready for the worst, nothing can scare you. You cannot be afraid. Then the stress
Well, you're
level.
talking about resilience, Hurricane. You're talking about that you have a mindset that, no matter what life is coming through you, throwing at you, you can get through it, and resilience happens over time. We're not born that way. We learn through our experiences, when our parents, don't baby you and you actually experience failure, you're going to do better in life. And today there's all these terms like helicopter parenting, and I call it bubble wrap parenting. We're not letting kids experience difficult things. And we don't want them to feel uncomfortable, but it's through little uncomfortable situations that you learn to get resilient. Like you build a fear time, I'm not so afraid and I am capable and I'm confident. And yes, I understand bad things happen, but I also have the tools to get through them.
Well, doctor, I mean, is not something that you, doctor, and folks that are in the mental health, that you do use treatment. For example, I know this happened to me. When I was 18, I drowned. Literally, I was lucky. I didn't die. I mean, I was literally helicoptered up, from the water and
Wow.
everything. And so we were surfing, and I got caught up into this tide, and then I got literally pulled out. Like riptide took me, and so I got nailed in a way for about 2 hours. I was literally stuck. So I get, helicopters literally, lift me out, like the Coast Guard, they took me and all the stuff, snatched me out. Anyways, that's not the issue. So the next day, I made friends with the guy that actually from the Coast Guard. So we kind of met the next day. So I was sitting, he's like, you know what, dude, come on, we're going to go back to the same spot. And he took me back to the same spot because he said, if I don't do it while it's fresh in my mind, I will have fear of ever going into the water. I will never do it.
Yeah.
And so you face your fear, right? And that's
Face your
exactly.
fear.
if you don't do this, I use this. I mean, you have fear of darkness. The only way is sit in darkness and figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, what is that really a protocol? I mean, that you guys use? I mean,
Well, I mean, it's exposure, and we definitely use it exposure with people with, anxiety and OCD. But I mean, even more simple than that, I mean, people just don't want their kids to have like anything uncomfortable. And in real life, not everything goes your way. And kids today are just not experiencing failures in the same way because they're not independent like we were. I mean, I was super independent. I was telling, must have been my kids the other day, we would go down on a bunch of us on a train in New York City, in the 80s when it wasn't super safe. And my parents were like, well, you're in a group, you'll be fine. And we were, because I was me and my friends were smart kids. We just didn't do stupid stuff, and we wanted to go out and just be independent. And wow, was it a confidence booster? So, we have to stretch ourselves and then learn to be a little uncomfortable, as you said. And it's through that uncomfortableness that we're able to then differentiate when something really is something we should worry about. If we stress over everything, how is our alert system in our body going to tell us when we actually should be afraid, right? Because there are times when we're should be afraid. But it's really about finding, what works for somebody in a healthy way, because we should employ and mitigate when things are uncomfortable. And I think that's part of what is happening in this world where people don't have stress tolerance. They are drowning their agitations. And then we have a world and a workforce filled with people that are struggling with clinical issues every day, maybe not before the pandemic, or maybe, but we're definitely in a rise for sure. And it's not just, levels of stress, even though they're at the highest levels they've ever been, particularly for parents. But we really are just a dramatic increase in serious clinical mental health issues like suicide and anxiety is now the number one clinical condition, with the average age of onset being age 6. So it's a big deal. Kids, even little kids, are experiencing anxiety.
wow. So I want to touch on that a little further, but just before,
Yeah,
you talked about, the idea of being able as a child, to do your thing, or a younger person to do stuff and
yeah,
experience life, take some calculated risk, right? And it's amazing. You said, I mean, we are positive to a degree, but you have to gauge. It's like almost your threshold is different. That's really what it is. You know,
that's right.
it's really, you just kind of like your thicker skin, basically develop that level where, like, it takes a lot before you actually get into that mode, like, and you get the warning signs and stuff, but you're aware and you keep pushing the boundaries, and you can get there better than most of the folks. But this is not a formula for you or me. I think this is, everybody can get to that point. But you're right, though. When we grew up, our parents, we were independent. We played out. We did stuff, and there was not a lot of like magazine parenting, I would call it, or like you said, helicopter parenting, or remote parenting, or like sheltering, a bubble wrap stuff. Like, oh, be
Sure.
careful, you can't tell, you can't fall, you can't do this, or like learning. Most of our parents learn not from the other parents; they just figured it out themselves and they did it. Now everybody's learning about, like, an article that this is the better behavior, this is how you do it. Now, I'm not putting that down as a concept, but it is affecting to the point where people are not doing, their piece. They're more like,
They're
oh,
afraid. They're afraid. The number one way we learn to parent is actually from our parents. That is the number one way. And so, in the perfect world, you take what is good, right? But times have changed. And so we have to modernize parenting. Like, when we were kids, technology was just coming out. So how do you even manage technology? Now, that's one of the biggest questions I have when parents come to me is, look, what do I do about this? He or she is addicted to that. Oh, how do and so we have to adapt, right? And evolve and make sure that we're, bettering ourselves as parents. But I think for sure parents are looking for help because they're seeing how distressed their kids are, right? Why do people people are listening right now, like, hey, Dr. Roche, she knows all this stuff about kids. Well, I have my own podcast, right? Supporting kids with behavioral and mental health issues. And there's not a lot out there for parents that is actionable. Like, what can I do? And I think parents need as many resources. And I think what I always try to talk about people, yes, I like for people to understand, like, this is a great conversation about understanding, but it's like, what are you actually going to do? What is the action you're going to put behind it? Because, change doesn't just happen. You actually have to do something different, right? If you're feeling anxious or depressed, and, you can't just keep doing the same thing if you're not getting relief.
Well, Doctor, first of all, thank you for sharing the fact that your podcast is available out there. So that's great. We want to make sure that people do check you out and listen to your work, because it's awesome stuff that you do out there. But
thank you.
Yeah, oh, it is. I enjoy it. Me, I'm a fan. So, but the idea is that especially for kids, I have kids, and it is difficult as a parent, because you try to protect them to a degree. Of course, you don't want them to get hurt,
Sure.
but you do want them to experience things. You mentioned we need to learn from the failures, and I love that, because it's really experiences. I call them. I mean, I refer to them as experiences, because some people think failure is a negative term, so I try to stay away from it. But the idea is, it's something that's happening that may not have positive outcomes or good outcomes, but there's always positive to it, because if you don't experience it, you're not going to know the difference, right? That's the part of it. So we want.
You won't know how to figure it out the next time. If you're not problem solving and that situation comes up again, and somebody rescued you and you didn't think on your own, what are you going to do the next time? Your parents aren't going to college with you, or they're not going to work with you.
Well, you're right. I mean, that's the thing. Like, we can only teach them some tricks, but they got to figure out a lot of tricks on their own, and they got to, like, really just manage. I mean, you got attitude in school. I mean, I'm not there with you, and so you got to work through that whole bullying stuff, and then the school culture is also different today, much different.
Oh my gosh, the school culture is totally different.
I have to tell you, I have no idea how. Like, I talk to my kids and they tell me the stuff. I'm like, I don't know. It's even like sometimes we go to for meetings and stuff, and I walk the hallways, like, this doesn't look like a school that I remember. The way there are people walking around. I mean, during force time, I mean, they're just like, chilling, and these whole passes are just being flying left to right. The teachers don't say anything. They don't care. I mean, it's just a whole different world. I mean, again, I mean, from this platform, I think our teachers need a lot of mental health support, because
they got burnt out in the pandemic. I mean, it was a really rough time. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and even just to think about kids, like, having a phone, and all of their life is documented. Like, there's no privacy. You can't do things like, there's no secret party anymore, or little conversations. Everything's documented on social media. I think that would be really scary to me.
It is.
I would have been in trouble, Hurricane. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, but back in days it was perfect. You did your thing, nobody knew the best.
Oh yeah, nobody knew about it.
That's it. You just like, it happened, it's over, right? But not today. But I think it's volunteering though. Listen, my kids are like this.
I know.
I mean, they're just like Snapchatting, whatever they're doing. I mean, every single step, like, sometimes I just shake my head, because I'm like, every like 2 minutes there is a picture of something, or like an action that I'm doing. It's like you're live being reported on a split second, by second.
And people are watching it, and they're all watching it. It's kind of crazy, right?
You know what's worse? That I cannot get this. My mind cannot get over it. And that is when they're sleeping with their I guess party going on. Everybody's watching everybody, and they just crash overnight, and everybody's still live. I mean, they sleep through the live, and everybody's, when they wake up, they look at each other, sneezing, snoring, whatever. I mean, what would you do that? I mean, it's like, you're right.
No, thank you.
Sometimes,
and that's not great for mental health. I mean, it's putting, you're not disconnecting, and, it's really interesting. I mean, I have some teenagers that are pretty self-confident, and they get to a point where they're like, I can't, I need some time from it. They're almost relieved when their parents, put a block on it. Right. And it's hard times out there for people when you are constantly somebody's looking at you when you're sleeping, and, you can't say anything without it being like grapevine instantaneously, on speed. So I think for parents, when we are supporting our kids, we want to try to be as connected as possible. We want to turn off our phone. We want them to turn off the phone when we're talking. We want to try to actually do things with them, like get out there, toss a ball, go and do things. These are the things that I think people forget how important they are in mental health. We're always looking for one thing that is the solution, a pill. And we're led to believe that that's the only option, and it's not, and it should never be the first option. There's so many other things that we can do to control our mind and our experiences, regardless of what the source is.
So, doctor, you referred to the word pill a couple of times,
Yeah.
and so I want to touch on that. But it's funny because you were talking, and just something came to mind. There's a quote that I see every now and then about the childhood when we were kids, and you hear yell car, when people are playing, and then the cars come and everybody stops. It
Yeah.
just reminds you, like, how it went, back in the days, and today's just, you watch even movies, right? You look at the movies, like, I don't know, the Goonies and all those
Oh
old
my
school.
gosh.
Yeah, you watch those and you watch some of the new ones. It's a whole different world. I mean, it's just different.
Whole different world.
Kids are just connected online, but talking about they're social, but they're completely not social. I mean,
Yes.
I don't get that part. I mean, yeah, it's social
Yeah.
network, you're socializing, but you'll be like talking to people that are literally you never met physically, and you have people sitting in front of you that you don't communicate with. I don't know. I've seen them in restaurants. I mean, in restaurants, people are sitting having dinner, lunch, whatever, and everybody's looking at their phone and texting and stuff. I mean, what's the point? We're sharing the meal together. That's all.
I know.
It is.
I
It is
know.
amazing.
We were on vacation, and like they put the little, screens up for their kids at the table instead of talking to their kids. And I thought, it's just so sad. Like, we're in this beautiful tropical location, and like, get your kids off their phones. Like, just don't permit it,
Yeah,
We're
I love
talking little
cruising.
kids.
I love cruising for one reason. We don't do internet packages, so we're just actually disconnected. That's it. I mean, for 7 days to 10 days, you just don't know it. And I mean, we got to find a booth or somewhere, in a different destination to make a phone call, and that's about it. Or maybe Wi-Fi, if anything. But it just actually makes a big difference. Like, you don't.
Big difference.
We're gonna transit to the discussion about work and what the difference it does when disconnect. I mean, right now, emails are like 24/7. They don't stop.
I
Your work is
know.
with you 24/7. So before
Yeah.
we go to the work piece,
Yeah.
the pill part. Let's talk about the pills.
Yeah.
Because
I
so,
mean,
yeah.
here's the deal about the pills, where, mental health is rising, and so is medication use, mental health issues. So we're not getting better by taking pills. And particularly for children, they're often overused and used what's called off-label, which means they're given to kids without research to substantiate that is the solution for that particular issue. So, you have autism. I'm going to give you this medication, but there is no medication for autism. It happens every day. And what I want to challenge people is, in the overuse of medication of all age, psychiatric medications, we should never use it as the first line of defense. And that is what my, stance is, because there is always a toxicity in medication. And I, was recently in this major docufilm by this unbelievable producer, Scott Steindorf, who really, changed his career. He only did like A-list movie, worked with A-list actors in these big movies. And his brother just died from liver toxicity at 57 from psych meds. And he really only wants to have impactful work. So, they call me up and they say, can you talk about natural solutions for ADHD? And I'm like, 1,000 times yes. Hello, have you seen my Instagram handle? But what I never want to shame or blame anybody, but what we have to start doing is teaching people, empowering people to these other things. And medications, 100% of the time, psychiatric medications have a toxic side effect. For some people, they can be really beneficial. but why are we jumping to them? And I think there's a multi-part answer, but ultimately it's people believe there's a quick fix because nobody's telling them anything different, which is why we're having this conversation. And two, this is a medical model of mental health, and this is what they are giving out. They're not saying to somebody, hey, listen, what are you eating? Because maybe what you're eating is affecting your mental health. You're living with your mother and she was abusive to you. Is that really in your best mental health? So there's so many other ways to start thinking about how can I change my brain? How can I regulate my nervous system? So then it's easier to make healthier choices for me. So, again, medication should just not be the first option, and we should be educating and empowering people on different options.
Thank you, doctor. But one thing, I mean, for sure, I mean, medication may, again, we had the same discussion literally yesterday. The medication may be camouflaging or like taking care of the symptoms at the instant stuff. Like you're not, going, screaming and getting all excited. You're just calm. But to your point, it's not solving the root cause, which is the main, the reason why you have this problem is the environment, maybe, or your abusive environment, whatever your bullying.
It could be a nutrient deficiency too. It could be improper diet. It could be chronic compounded stress. So it's not always genetics or a neurotransmitter issue, because that's what pharma believes you should know so that you'll want a medication.
Yeah, well, we're not going there.
Yeah,
that's a whole different discussion, but there is another thing that is emerging right now, and it's I don't know how, but it's becoming like the norm, and that is the e-cig vaping, in the school system. I mean, my kid's school is it's a good school. This is not even like it's a bad area or anything. It's a nice place, but everybody and the school system is trying to figure out how to prevent it, but people are still doing it. I mean, and you can see people like hiding those things, but those are chemicals that you're running in your body, and that stuff is affecting not only your physical but also your mental state, and people are doing it, and the kids are like more into this than maybe even adults. I see, teenagers, forget about it. They just like in high school is, I don't know, it's like a drama set, with everything that you can possibly imagine. It's I don't know, but
I mean, it's a dangerous, vaping. There's a lot of, things that it can do. A few years ago, there was a lot of controversy because kids were getting really sick from the chemicals that are in it. There was some cleanup, but it's still a dangerous thing. I mean, listen, teenagers' brains are not fully developed. They're supposed to do dumb stuff, right? I think that it becomes something that kids are using as a way to cope and deal with stress. Anytime we lean in on anything unhealthy, we have to stop, right? And whether it's an adult or kid, and have conversations about it. And kids are exploring their world, but we also have to think, what is it at home? Who's role modeling proper ways to manage stress in these times when we're all stressed out? What we can do to self-regulate, our kids co-regulate off of us. And so it's as important to take care of yourself and put that oxygen mask on as it is to take care of your kid, because they're struggling out there in the world. So, everyone's reason why they vape is different. Sometimes it's just stupid teenage stuff.
Well, but you're right. But unfortunately, it's being exploited, by the people that sell that stuff, and it's industry. It makes money, and it's all cool thing. But now it's the cool thing, But 10 years from now, you're not a teenager. 20 years from now, you're not a teenager, and now you're having all these health issues, physical, mental. We don't even know the ramifications in 10 years from now, because it is still fairly new. And so that's a dilemma. Now this perfect segue in terms of the discussion about work. Parents, you said it. Parents, maybe why the kids are doing what they're doing, because parents are really busy, and they try to make ends meet. They're making a living, and both parents are like every day out. They're stressing at work.
Both parents are working. They're overloaded.
Yeah, but so now we're talking about workspace, and the work that we live in, the work environment is different. It's just too stressful. I mean, I give the example of the email stuff. I mean, before the computer age and even the early days, before actually the phones and all these smartphones, you will leave your office and you won't touch an email until the next day when you check in, and then you
No.
check in. Now it's like, they follow you everywhere you go, 24/7.
Yeah.
And you feel compelled to actually literally respond to these things. I have a rule. I
Absolutely.
don't do it. But
Yeah. No. I mean, the climate of the world in this, pandemic society, in the workplace has changed dramatically. I mean, physically, we have people working from home more than we, ever have. There's some people in dribs, little dribbles getting back, and offices are reopening. But people's mental health has declined, right? And, they're mothers and fathers and employees. And so when we look at the workforce, right, a lot of women left the workforce during the pandemic because they had to, do home-based instruction and do all those things. So they were trying to work at home and do those things. So they left. And so there's a lot of dynamic changes that have actually happened, right? So we have less women, women are more emotionally centered in general, not making it, they're just raised that way. They're cultivated that way. It doesn't mean there's not guys that are emotionally centered, but they're nurtured to be that way. So they tend to be more that. So we then have so many people at home, and in the same time, we have a rise in clinical mental health offices in mental health issues, and people have left the workforce in general, or are, so getting good employees is hard. And so environments are really different. I think when I talk to so many people, they often talk about how terrible their work environment is, how toxic it is. Yet, they may feel trapped to be there. And I think, one of the messages that I often share with organizations is like, what are you doing to support, the mental wellness of your employees, not just a yoga class, but in terms of culture. People are really outwardly struggling with mental health, sometimes right at work. And that's not easy for the manager, or the powers that be to manage. It's not easy for the other people that are there. And certainly it's not easy for the person that's struggling. So, changing culturally how we respond to an employee who's struggling with mental health, or even just neurodiverse, is become a priority in the workplace, because there's no other choice. We have to support people.
Doctor, you're alluding to a lot of things in terms of the work, but here's the thing, maybe the workplace is even responsible for the mental health status because of the stress, the extra pressure and stuff. Because here's the thing, business is meant to thrive and make profits. And so there's a lot of pressure that comes down. I mean, it's really, that's what it is. The board decides, senior leadership decides, and then we got go time. And by the way, I have been in some executive roles, and I know how it works. It's very difficult, and sometimes you have to make decisions. I'm in sales, so stress levels are high. So I've spent 30 years doing sales, so I know exactly what it is, and it's to balance where you can do good with your team and stuff. And sometimes you find it challenging because you're like managing both sides, and you get the pressures, and it's how you diffuse that pressure, going down on the team. It's one thing, for example, and then depends on where you stand, in that chain, it can be very difficult. But I think that's the problem. And because you said, you mentioned something about lack of staffing, for example, it has been difficult since the pandemic to even find people. People don't show up at interviews. People don't even show up to their start days. It's just been crazy. And then you have, I'm not a anti-vaccine one, but it's been a lot more of that. You cannot start some jobs without the vaccine, and therefore some people don't want to do it. Therefore, they can't work. So now it's making it even worse. And so you have all these things, but then now, because you have less people working, because maybe you settle for talent, what's happening is that you push, the results are not there. You put more pressure on the ones that are there, and you create a lot more negativity, a lot more like mental stress and anxiety and all the depression stuff that happens. And then that goes home with you. And then you lash out to your spouse, your significant others, your kids, your entourage. And then now, again, divorce is high. Everything is high. And
there's the cycle.
Yeah, it's seriously crazy. The word
No,
crazy here.
and I agree with you. You're talking about, same level of work, less employees, the work culture, more stressed people, and it is not conducive to good, performance, income for businesses, and retaining talent. You know, and they're finding that they're really having to do more wellness. I mean, in the last week, two companies reached out with me to me for wellness because they recognize that they have to understand mental health and they have to do things that will support the person's emotional status, behavioral status, so that it's not just for the employees, but it's for the organization.
Doctor, I can listen. These are tips that I use, as a leader in my environment. Uh, you know, in sales, we do have stress levels that are higher than most, right? However,
Oh, definitely.
However, we enjoy what we do because in our world there is entertainment, there is fun stuff. We do, escapes, we do different outings, we do team buildings. So you diversify, you make it, and a good leader will actually make the team enjoyable. Times. You take them out, you do stuff. So you compensate. The problem now, because of costs, because of stuff, some of these companies are taking some of these things away, and so now that whole decompression tools are not available the way they did before. I remember back in the days, we would have, after hours, you come out, you go and have some nice dinner with the team and just relax, and sometimes even go out, do things just to make sure that everybody is good. And people feel good about coming back to work, and they feel good about going out, and they see the value of doing the stuff, and they perform better. But when you take all those extras and you're like, oh, we budget is tight and this and that. Talking about investing, right? You're still going to invest somehow, and it's going to cost in the healthcare because they're going to be
Yeah,
sick. They're not going to show up. You're going to have,
that's right.
replacement. It takes
Yeah.
longer to hire and to find talent. So it's the same thing. So if you look at it, something's got to give. But
Oh, stress is like one of the greatest income loss producers for all businesses. It's like the amount of people that miss work just due to stress every day is astronomical. So you're leaving money on the table. You're right, by not, carrying, cultivating. But I think they're so ill-equipped in managing. Somebody had come to me recently, where they had an employee really just basically have a full breakdown at work. And, what should they do? How should they handle it? And that it kind of opened up Pandora's box that, there was, this person had really made a lot of people feel very uncomfortable. And my first words were, what's your collateral damage plan? And this is not a unique situation. I know more than one, company that is come to me for support in just this very thing. How do we manage this, and how do we prevent this from happening? And I love, that's what wellness is about. But what are the signs? How do we manage it? And ultimately, in the end, all of my work, what wraps a bow around it, regardless of age, is calming that brain. Once you calm that brain, it's much easier to be positive. It's much easier to go for a walk. It's much easier to see a therapist. Whatever it is that's going to bring health and reduce the stress. And so it doesn't matter how old you are, if you're a student, if you work, whatever it is, we've got to take the time to regulate our nervous system, and everybody can do it. There's no excuse.
well, there is no. We have no choice, right? But what you said about the like the case of someone who's having a breakdown, right? It's
Yeah.
that's crazy. That's sad. But think about this: if I'm stressed and I go to work, I'm sure I'm going to make life hell for everybody around me. And so now here's the thing: that also puts the company in liability mode because now we have
Oh,
condescending
I mean,
behavior.
that's a different story. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
because things can
Yeah.
escalate, maybe it can violence, whatever. Now you have lawsuits that can be lingering and all these things. It is not, when you look at a big picture, you can literally mitigate a lot of this stuff by providing a better environment. Even you talking about the pandemic. One thing the pandemic did clarify to people that jobs can still get done remotely or hybrid mode.
Yeah.
And they've been effective to a degree. So maybe some jobs need to be physical there, but frankly, I mean, it's been done. I mean, the companies didn't die. I mean, they survived through the pandemic, and nobody knew that it's going to happen, but they did. So therefore, there is a potential. And if we were able to do it then, why can't we do it now and just make it happier? People are happier to work. A lot of people are saying that, I'm comfortable, I'm doing my work. There's a culture to it, but you learn how to do it. That's all. But it makes a difference. And now people are less. Traffic is one thing. I mean, anyone that you mentioned New York City. I mean, if you're driving New York City, no matter where you're going, it's an hour.
It's got to be traffic.
Traffic, exactly.
Especially on a Friday.
Oh, Fridays is just a nightmare. Forget about it. And Mondays or Fridays, or any rush hour. But the problem is, right? I'm for example, this is my rule: no meetings at 9:00. Sorry. And the reason I don't do it is because all I've noticed over the years, when someone is rushing to be at 9:00, yeah, you start at 9:00. I mean, here's the thing: even that whole thing started 9 to 5. How much really do you provide of work in that time? Let's be real. I mean, unless you're like literally a typist and you just type in words from the minute you go into the end or you're answering the phone. I mean, I don't know. But if your performance are tasks and, job and work projects or whatever, there's a lot of stuff that can be done. You're probably going to get a good 5-6 hours maybe out of the day, if anything. That's one way. And I don't think that's the reality of things. And so at the end of the day, you're stressing out everybody to come in and do the stuff at 9:00, and sometimes it may not work. And what you're doing, you're not getting the best from them, because if someone didn't have a good night's sleep, they had to rush into the traffic, they probably had road rage before they get in, they have their coffee, whatever, and now they're just like coming to a meeting, they're really like zombies, and you're not going to get much of them. And now you're not happy because the discussion is going well, and now you're worried about your job, your day. So all this stuff, we actually do unnecessary stuff to ourselves. I swear to God, we're the worst enemy of ourselves is ourselves, and sometimes, we don't see it. I think it should be a mandatory state where all, orientations should have some mental discussion in orientation.
Absolutely. What are the signs, And, it's really hard for both the employee and the employer, as an employer during the pandemic, I definitely said, I want to have less employees, and moved my business to having less employees, because it's a great workplace. And some of my people really struggled with their own mental health during the pandemic and didn't want to take care of it, and I was like, wow, this is really hard. And yeah, I'm a mental health professional, and how you manage an employee who's struggling, there are laws and there's things you can and can't say. So that's why wellness is always a good idea, because we can always talk about wellness, and companies really can create a great culture. And, every business is different. Sometimes you have to be there at a certain time, but sometimes you don't. And some people are more professional and have a higher level of integrity, and some people don't. So, it's a tricky dance. And I think, the companies that really know what their values are, really have a clear mission, regardless of what business it is, whether it's manufacturing or mental health or podcasting, when companies buy into it and know and feel like they're part of something, they're just much more likely to have, that cohesiveness, and the wellness will come, right? But it's a purposeful effort. It's just like parents raising kids. It's the same thing as being an employer. We have to be more concerned about mental wellness, especially, as you said, for productivity. And not just for that employee, but for the people around them. It's definitely multifaceted, and it's hard. And I think we're forever changed in the employment world. I don't know where all the people who left their job are, what they're doing though. I don't know what they're doing, but a lot of entrepreneurs happened.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of change in career paths and or independent stuff. Like a lot of people are going online, doing their own thing. I mean, so. Sure. That's been more of an eye opener. I mean, because there's so much that can be done remotely now, and through apps and this and that. So people are exploring those things. I mean, even there is an exodus. There's people that are leaving the country. That's another thing that's happening. I had more than
one friend leave the country. Yeah, absolutely.
People are just finding opportunities elsewhere, and they're just moving. South, west, east. I mean, they're going all over the world, and it's amazing. How it's, but it's. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all happening here, right? In our head,
Mhm.
that's where the mind is performing, and decisions are being made. But the impact is affecting a lot of people. Now there's other factors. I mean, again, the environment that we live in is polluted. There's more stuff. There's all these toxins that we get. Maybe that's also a trigger that is affecting how we behave. I mean, behavioral stuff is
Sure.
becoming more relevant, that something's wrong. You have wars, you have instability, and people like are literally thinking like, is this going to affect us? I mean, just think about it. Now with the Ukraine and Russia, nuclear is like almost the 60s or whatever, when we had those scary days. It's the same concept today, and some people actually buy into that, which it could be a real effect, a real thing. So it's like, everything is almost geared to affect our mental health. Everything is almost designed today to make it more difficult, and it's affecting the next generation, because to your point, the disconnect, the parents are not even there.
Yeah.
The parents are, they don't have time for the kids. I mean, like, you come home, it's like you're a zombie. You just go shower, eat, go sleep, boom, whatever, vice versa, whatever formula you do. But when is the time? And then you said it's easiest, like, you pacify them through their system. They have the phone, they have their friends. Good, I don't have to deal with them. And
Yeah.
it's
Well, and parents are working hard. I mean, I think parents do a good job. Most parents, they try to carve out time, and, they're trying to work hard to support, their families. And ultimately, in the end, like, you mentioned a lot of different variables. And a day-to-day basis, everyone's going to have stressors. And it's that attitude towards the stressors that is going to make the difference. And, can we have more support, in school systems? Yes. Can we have more support? I think school systems are doing a lot, and I don't know how much more they can do. Can we change it, right? Can we do more about coping strategies? And certainly, if companies are going to rise and continue to grow and retain employees, focusing on wellness is an absolute mandatory component. Just for, not only for company growth, but for supporting these valued treasures, their employees.
you said keyword mandatory. I'm telling you, I think there should be just a mandate. You
Oh,
have a
yeah.
company, you have to have a program that they gotta. I mean, it's not a law, but we ought to make it a law that you got to go to a program where you get de-stressed, decompressed, whatever, and get back
Yeah.
for and everybody, doesn't matter what level, you should go through the same program, so everybody is feeling right, and really creates that environment where everybody's willing to work. Listen, I mean, the idea is, if you can't be happy to go to work, you're just going to be miserable, and you're going to make everybody else as miserable, and you're going to bring them miserable, levels, whatever you go. And so even when you go to shop, I mean, you're coming out to go to lunch, right? You go to the store, and you have, a bad morning. You're going to take it on those guys in that store, and then you're going to have attitude. You come
Oh,
back.
well, that's what's happening. And people are hate blogging and, all those other things. But I think, what's so important, like, as we've talked about a lot of things. And I think, what we started about is, we have control over our minds, and we have control over, how we think about things, how we react to things. That's the only thing we have control over. And so if people lean in on that, and they really say, okay, I'm going to be more present. I'm going to focus on today, and I'm going to, say 5 grateful words today, and you start to see change. That's the empowerment that I want to come out of this conversation, because it's kind of cuckoo out there in the world. And if we kind of open up the blinds and we look, we're like, but we can also be like, oh, well, this and this and this, but this is what I have control over. And I think that's the biggest message that I want people to hear, because otherwise we're going to be scared and sad.
Love it. And you're at one day at a time, right? You just take
One
it.
day at a time.
And
Absolutely.
tomorrow hasn't happened. Yesterday is over. Today is happening. Take it slow. Take it easy. Take it easy, right? Make it happen. But
Yeah,
but 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 you're right. And that works. I swear to God, it works, because I don't
it
have to.
does.
Because people are like worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, listen, the word ends. The word ends. I'm not going to be worried about it. I mean,
Nope. Nope. You
again,
can be in control of your
exactly.
mind,
I
wherever it is. Even if you're in a work environment that's hard, you're in control of your mind, right? And you can do little actions can alleviate a lot of stress. And I think that's the empowering thing that we have to leave people with in this conversation.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you, doctor. So question. We're coming to the end of the show. So your next. I know we talked the last time about your book, and is there books?
Yeah.
Are there books in the making right now, or?
There is a little book in the making, but I'm not going to say what it is because it's actually a great idea. And I am in the trademark process for it. So I don't want to say what it is or what it's about, but it's going to be a big deal. But I, have my podcast. It's going to be okay. And I'm really proud of it because it's helping parents and it's short episodes, 12 to, less than 20-minute episodes.
Over 70K downloads, right?
Yeah, we're almost at 80 now. That was last
80,
week.
There you go. That was good.
I know. So it's so exciting. And, it's helping people. And I have a product line. I have two product lines. So I have a device that's FDA regulated, PEMF, called Calm PMF. And it's designed to calm the nervous system. And then our supplement line that everybody's been waiting for like a year, Neurotastic, is going to be coming out this summer.
Oh, now, how does it work? I mean, it's just a regular supplement too.
Yeah, so I'm starting with magnesium and I have it's multiple magnesiums and it's a powder form. So it's for kids and adults and it has a scooper. So you can, just pop it in, water or juice or a smoothie. And magnesium is my first because it is my number one favorite. And we can't get enough magnesium in this high stress world. And magnesium is required for 300 chemical processes in the body. And with our stress levels being so high, it can't always have enough magnesium for simple things. So that's part of why we're even experiencing more physical stress is just magnesium depletion.
We're going to need more of that, right? So now we know where to go.
Need more of that. Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
Is it going to be available on your website as well? So
it's going to be available on my website. That's the main place where it's going to be, and through a partner, MD Logic. So 2 different websites. Yeah, I'll come back and talk about it, Hurricane, when it's out.
Yes.
If you want.
Yes,
so
we do want that. And
I'm excited.
The secret book.
My secret book will be out by the end of the year. I'm not going to tell. It's very hard for me to keep my mouth shut, but it's a genius idea. I'll be back.
You'll be back. I'll be back. Okay.
It's something that people need. That's all I'm going to say. And it's something that's going to help people. So, because that's what I try to do every day. But I enjoyed this conversation so much. You're such a light, Hurricane. And, I think that no matter what life throws at you, have an attitude of gratitude, and think on your feet about what a solution is, but it's okay to feel a range of emotions. It's just not okay to live in it, right? If you're stuck there, just take an action and move forward, right?
I was going to ask about final words of wisdom.
Yeah.
And those
that's
were
it.
Doctor, thank you so much for being.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
All right. Well, folks, there you have it. We had fun. Hope you enjoyed this nice chat and exchange, and take the values. I mean, doctor is helping a lot of people on a day-to-day basis. So I think we've had some good nuggets here to take with us and apply. That being said, I'm Hurricane H. We'll be talking soon. New day, new show, new topic, new guest. Bye for now.